What's up, y'all? You're watching Union Minded. I'm your host, Eric, and today we're going to talk about some tragic news that we received via ABC Eyewitness News. Really disturbing story, a hate crime. A 6-year-old boy was stabbed 26 times, I believe it was, and his mother was also stabbed by their landlord over the fact that they were Muslims. And it's just disgusting. And if we're not careful, this propaganda will have you believing the most ludicrous things, and it will have you not believing your own eyes. And they'll say things like, don't believe your lying eyes. If you're not careful, this propaganda will have you believing that inflation was because of a stimulus check and not greedflation, not a manifestation of greedy companies overcharging because they simply can. If you're not careful, this media propaganda will have you believing that we have benevolent, wealthy individuals who trickle down money towards us to help us to do better in life. If you're not careful, this media will have you believing that the state of Israel is the good guys in this conflict between Israel, the state, the government, not the Jewish people, the government, versus the Palestinian civilians. They say they're going against Hamas, but they're doing collective punishment, and they're punishing children by dropping bombs on their heads to the tune of over 1,000 bombs per day over the last week. Nobody that I have seen has said that Hamas's attack into Israel was a noble thing. No one has said that. No one. What they have said is it was almost inevitable when the conditions that you are imposing on a group of people are so brutal and they have no recourse. No one's coming to rescue them. No one's coming to help them. No one's coming to break them out of that strip of land where 2.2 million Palestinians live, mostly, almost half of which are children. No one's coming to help them. The world turns a blind eye as the state of Israel continues to take their homes away, continues to evict them, and continues to land grab, do settler colonialism, and murder them and attack their mosques and push them into deprived and depraved situations. Nobody was coming to help the Palestinians. And so what did they do? They trying to bring awareness. They're trying to make the world look and take notice. Hamas, I don't believe, thinks that they're going to beat Israel in a fight. I think what they want to do is make the world pay attention to what's going on. Did they go about it the right way? No. But this media propaganda machine will have you believing crazy stories like Hamas beheaded 40 babies. A statement that Joe Biden actually took to the airwaves to state, and then the White House had to walk it back. But it's too late by that point. I know good people that believe that nonsense today. Should Hamas not try to fight and raise awareness and bring the world's eyes to this situation so that the people in Palestine might get some outside involvement to help their situation out? What are they supposed to do? Not do anything? Now, I pray for peace. I pray for peace. I don't want anybody hurt. But we can't ignore the war crimes that are going on. They're bombing evacuation routes that they tell Palestinians to go to. They're bombing hospitals. They're turning off the power. They're turning off the water. They're pouring concrete into wells so that there's no water afterwards. There's a lot of nastiness going on over there. And the propaganda machine here in the United States is such that people are buying into it. And they're believing these narratives that are being pushed. But anybody who takes an objective look can see that Israel is wrong in how they are treating the Palestinians. They're wrong. Free Palestine. I'll say it again and again. Free, free Palestine. And if you don't like my channel because I'm saying that, I don't know what to tell you. My solidarity will always be with the oppressed, with the downtrodden, with the poor. That's where my solidarity lies. Why? Because I'm one step away from it myself. I'm not delusional. I'm not a millionaire in weight. I know where I stand. I know that one injury will send me to the poorhouse. I know that one illness, one bad diagnosis will bankrupt me and cripple my family. I know that. So my solidarity is always with those who are poor, oppressed, hungry, needy. That's where my solidarity is. That's how I grew up. I have class solidarity. I will never side with the oppressor. I will never side with the abuser. Genocide will always be wrong. This is a really long intro to tell you about this despicable story. This is from ABC News, and I'll put the link in the description box for you so you can read it for yourself. Unincorporated Plainfield stabbing. New details about murder of a 6-year-old Muslim boy revealed in court. You Muslims must die. 71-year-old Joseph Zuba, to remain behind bars, faces hate crime charges in murder of Wadia al-Fayoumi. That's what he said as he stabbed them. You Muslims must die. Here we go. The 6-year-old suburban boy stabbed to death in an apparent hate crime over the weekend was laid to rest on Monday in Muslim tradition. Landlord Joseph Zuba stabbed Wadia al-Fayoumi and his mother, 32-year-old Hanan Shaheen, in unincorporated Plainfield Saturday morning because they are Muslim, the Will County Sheriff's Office said. Al-Fayoumy's uncle, Mahmoud Yusuf, spoke to the boy's family at a press conference before the funeral prayer on Monday afternoon. The boy's father, Odey al-Fayoumi, also spoke, but only in his native language. A 71-year-old man sitting up on top of a 6-year-old kid, stabbing him more than 26 times, and he was looking in his eyes, Yusuf said. The message was much broader than this one act of violence. He's a 6-year-old kid. As any other 6-year-old kid, he likes to play games, Yusuf said. He's a very kind kid. He likes to jump up and down. The boy's funeral and the circumstances behind this tragic death came in the midst of the war in the Middle East. The gentleman heard it. It was in his mind. The only thing he saw that kid and his mom, Yusuf said. I just want to tell the world that we live in a country called USA. We're not at war, and we're not bringing war here too. Many pro-Palestinian and Muslim faith leaders place the blame for this crime on the shoulders of President Joe Biden, U.S. support for Israel, and the media's coverage of the war. This heinous crime did not take place in a vacuum, said Osama Abur-Shahid, executive director of the American Muslims for Palestine. Inside the mosque, hundreds bowed their heads in prayer. The service overall was brief. The mosque was so packed that it overflowed outdoors. We received a text message from his mom that when he was stabbed, his last words to his mom, "Mom, I'm fine." You know what? He is fine. He is in a better place, Yusuf said. Can you imagine? That 6-year-old boy yelled out, "Mom, I'm fine," as that knife was taking his life away. Community members lingered, and while there was shared grief for this young boy, the signs of conflict overseas permeated the funeral. The fear for one's life, for one's children's life, from these sorts of attacks. On the other hand, we really have to keep things in perspective because we see that the children and the men and women that are in Gaza and Palestine are facing death every minute, every second, said high school teacher and community member Deanne Othman. All of these things, whether consciously or subconsciously, affect the way that we view people, and the way that we view people has real-life consequences. The boy and mom had rented Zuba's ground floor in the 16200 block of South Lincoln Highway near Lily Cash Road for the past 2 years with no issues arising until Saturday, according to the family. Details about the crime released in court on Monday painted a picture of a man angry over the current conflict between Hamas and Israel in the Middle East. In the days prior to this violent attack, it seemed the suspect had become paranoid and worried about his own safety. Zuba, 71, appeared in Will County Court dressed in a red jumpsuit, shackled with his hair unkempt. As he faced the judge for the first time, he has been charged with first-degree murder, attempted first-degree murder, and 2 counts of committing a hate crime. When asked if he understood the charges and the time he faces for each charge, he replied, "Yes, sir." Prosecutors in court said Zuba confronted Shaheen over what was going on in the Middle East, and then an argument turned physical. Assistant State's Attorney Michael Fitzgerald recounted the mother's statements to police. Zuba was angry at her over what was going on in Jerusalem. She responded by saying, "Let's pray for peace." He didn't give her time. He then attacked her with a knife, Fitzgerald said. Fitzgerald then added that Zuba's wife was not home during the attack, stated that her husband wanted them to move out. He believed they were in danger, and she was going to call her Palestinian friends over to harm them, Fitzgerald said. So Zuba believed that him and his wife were in danger, and that the woman was going to call her Palestinian friends over to harm them. Shaheen was stabbed 12 times and remains hospitalized in serious condition. Al-Fayoumeh died after suffering 26 stab wounds from a military-style knife, officials said. In announcing the charges against Zuba, the Will County Sheriff's Office called the crime senseless and cowardly, saying in part, detectives were able to determine that both victims in this brutal attack were targeted by the suspect due to them being Muslim and the ongoing Middle Eastern conflict involving Hamas and the Israelis. Late Sunday, the Chicago FBI Field Office, the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice, and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois said they have opened a federal investigation into the killing. ABC 7's legal analyst Gil Soffer explained why the federal government is getting involved. It really means that the federal government sees the same case and has the same interest in this case as the state. The feds want to pursue this. The feds see a right that's been violated, rights that need to be vindicated, and it wants in the same game. Soffer said, "It's not double jeopardy, and we'll see that sometimes that the Department of Justice bringing charges on hate crimes, even where the states are involved, because it's a serious enough case and because the Department of Justice wants to send a message that it will not tolerate hate, especially violent hate crimes." He said it isn't a certainty that federal charges will be filed, but he believes it's likely. It's likely based on the facts that we know of them so far. The most challenging part of a civil rights case like this is to prove intent. Given the statements that we hear were made by this defendant, it seems the case can be brought by the department, and it's got a pretty strong one, Soffer said. A recent photo of Al-Fayoumeh showed a young Central Elementary School student who had celebrated his birthday a couple weeks ago. At a community press conference on Sunday, the boy's father was too shaken to speak, but he was joined by Muslim faith leaders who said this alleged hate crime is every Palestinian American's biggest fear as war rages in the Middle East. What we have is a murdered Palestinian child by someone who is radicalized by the environment in which we live right now. That casts Palestinians as human animals, said Ahmed Rehab, president of the Council on American Islamic Relations in Chicago. This person had no track record with the family. As a matter of fact, the father says he had built a treehouse for the boy and allowed him to swim in a makeshift pool and brought him toys. He was a lovely boy who loved his family and his friends. He loved soccer, basketball, and he paid the price for the atmosphere of hate, Rehab said. The family said that Shaheen left the West Bank to come to the U.S. 12 years ago in hopes of avoiding the violence that continues today overseas. The president of the Council on Arab-American Relations in Chicago stood alongside the murdered boy's father and described text messages sent to him by his ex-wife from the hospital where she is still recovering. He knocked on the door and that he attempted to choke her and said, "You Muslims must die," and attempted to stab her and stabbed her. And she went to the bathroom and called 911, and this was all in her own words, Rehab said. Investigators said Zuba, who is an Air Force veteran, has not provided a statement to police, but they believe they have enough physical evidence as well as witness statements to back up the charges filed. Zuba is being held at the Will County Adult Detention Facility pending his trial and chose to be represented by a public defender. If convicted, he will spend the rest of his life in prison. In the wake of Wadea Al-Fayoumeh's death, some in the Muslim community who attended his funeral services said this is the most unsafe they've ever felt. This goes to show that we can't even feel safe when the majority of us are Arabs and Muslims, said Layla Hedrug. To murder a child while yelling all Muslims should die, that is vile, it's sick, and it's unfair, said Dalia Ali. That death was fueled by misinformation. Do not make the same mistakes that we made in 9/11, where mischaracterized a whole group of people, said Maria Mosaffar of the Muslim Civic Coalition. The Anti-Defamation League said Jewish organizations have widely denounced the attack on Wadia's family and anti-Muslim hate as the organization condemns the act. The idea that somebody watches a media story and becomes indoctrinated in some form or fashion and thinks that that's the way that you can support Israel is by killing a Muslim. That's wrong, said David Goldenberg, Regional Director of the Anti-Defamation League Midwest. Meanwhile, the community is grieving a loss of their own and trying to find the right words to provide strength for the mother who is still holding on. In a statement, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said, "I am heartbroken by the abhorrent killing of Wadea Al-Fayyoumi, a 6-year-old child who died after being stabbed 26 times with a military-style knife. On behalf of the entire Justice Department, I want to express my deepest condolences to his family and his community as they grieve his loss." It's a very long statement, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm broken. I'm heartbroken over this. I'm heartbroken over what's going on in the Middle East. I'm heartbroken seeing the Palestinians being murdered. I'm heartbroken seeing the hate spewed by the Israeli Defense Forces. I'm heartbroken at the violence that happened towards the Israelis in the attack that Hamas laid out. You have got to think critically. You have to know that there is a spin cycle with media. They lie on a regular basis. You can't believe everything you read, everything you see. You have to do your due diligence. And you definitely have got to lead with love. This is bullshit. That poor baby. My daughter's 7. I can't even imagine. To all my Muslim friends, I love you. I'm sorry that this is going on. I wish I could take the pain away. If you can make it through the night, there's a brighter day. Everything will be all right if we hold on. It's a struggle every day. Gotta roll on. Y'all remember, the fight's not left and right. It's up and down. It's gonna take solidarity to win always. Each one teach one, get out there and reach one. And remember, there could be no union without you and I front and center. And for those of you who have made it this far and are questioning why this is on a union-minded channel, it's because we are a multicultural union. Always have been. We have brothers and sisters that are Muslims. We have brothers and sisters that are Jewish. We have brothers and sisters of all different races and creeds. It matters. I love you. Have a good night. Peace.